So it's been a while since I made one of these videos, and I just thought it was time I got up off my ass and did something. So this video is actually about my personal predictions for the GoPro Hero 10. I mean, we're getting a lot closer to that GoPro Hero 10 release date, and there's going to be rumors abound as to what's in the pipeline for customers. So in this video, I'm going to take a realistic look at what could be in store for the next model GoPro. Unlike other sites and videos, I'm not going to take the existing specs and just multiply them by 2. That's lazy and it's unrealistic. We've seen it happen before with the GoPro Hero 4. It recorded in 4K at 30 frames a second. So people immediately said the GoPro Hero 5 will be 8K at 60 frames a second. Never happened. They said the GoPro Hero 6 will be 8K at 60 frames a second. Never happened. Same with the GoPro Hero 7, the GoPro Hero 8, and when it came up to the release date for the GoPro Hero 9, they were pretty much predicting the same things. So no, instead I'm going to take the existing knowledge of GoPro's current flagship model and use GoPro's previous release strategy to come up with a more realistic and down-to-earth approach as to what we can actually expect to see in the next model GoPro. So hopefully this video will prove interesting and my predictions will actually prove realistic. So sit back, relax, enjoy the video. So it is possible that GoPro could totally redesign the camera, put a brand new processor in there, the GP2 chip, increase the sensor size, give us 8K video at 60 frames a second, but then they'd probably end up with a $2,000 camera that no one could afford to buy, which is not really GoPro's market. They're kind of aiming for that, $350 to $450 kind of market. So instead it makes more financial sense for GoPro to try and squeeze as much performance out of their current hardware and make as little changes to the camera hardware-wise as possible. This way they can give customers new features to keep them coming back without having to invest a lot of money in new camera hardware. That's simply how you make a profit and you use up existing stockpiles of hardware you have lying around. We've seen this before with GoPro cameras. They give incremental improvements rather than jaw-dropping changes. I mean, honestly, the biggest change we've seen in GoPros over the past few iterations is that color front screen on the Hero 9 and, well, that's about it really. So what can we expect to see in the GoPro Hero 10? Well, here's the changes I don't think are coming. The processor. GoPro has been using the same GP1 chip since the GoPro Hero 6 was released, and a lot of people were thinking that the sluggish interface of the Hero 9 was due to that GP1 chip being pushed to its limits. However, more than likely it was just bad code that needed improvement. In fact, the last firmware update we had really improved the experience of that touchscreen on the GoPro Hero 9. Dare I say, on the touchscreens of the GoPro Heroes, the GoPro Hero 9 is actually now my favourite and most responsive screen to use. However, while the GoPro Hero 9 introduced things like 5K video at 30 frames per second, support for horizon leveling, shooting with the max lens mod, we've also seen several shooting selections disappear, like shooting in 2.7K at 30 frames per second. Color accuracy has really gotten worse, especially when trying to use a flat color profile. You'll notice that it's got that yellowish tinge to it that previous models didn't have. And that all could be a sign that the GoPro One is really starting to struggle with the amount of post-processing it has to do to the image while maintaining global tone mapping. However, this is something that could be addressed with more firmware improvements and cleaned up code. So, are we likely to see a GP2 chip introduced this year? Probably not. I think the GP1 chip has a lot of life left in it, and more than likely GoPro will just find a better way to cool the chip when it's in use as to prevent overheating. The sensor. GoPro gave us a huge pixel increase with the GoPro Hero 9, implying better resolution and better looking photos. However, most people found out quickly this meant poor low light performance. GoPro have been using the same Sony sensor in its cameras for quite some time now, and it's unlikely they're going to do a switch for their new offering, as Sony don't have an upgraded version of their existing sensor that GoPro are using. And there's probably a long-term contract in place there, so it's not something I'd expect to see. And while GoPro certainly won't want to decrease the pixel count, increasing would result in even worse performance in low light, so we may not see any megapixel increase this time around at all. Instead, what I'm expecting GoPro to do is actually improve upon its HDR photography mode and also support HDR video mode in 4K only. I doubt GoPro will be giving us HDR video on 5K, although they may push for it at the cost of other video resolutions and frame rates. I think, however, it will be HDR video support in 4K only, and possibly HDR video support in 5K when the GoPro Hero 11 is released, which means it won't be until the Hero 12 is released that we actually see a new sensor. And this is just due to limitations on the existing sensor that they're currently using. So yeah, I'm not seeing any more increases in megapixels or up to 8K or anything like that, but HDR video will most likely be coming this year. The rear screen. Now this has been a huge issue with the GoPro Hero 9. Upon its release it was just horrific to use. It was more akin to playing Wheel of Fortune and hoping to actually get the setting you want than being able to actually select the setting you want. Even the December firmware upgrade did little to improve things. The latest firmware version though has made huge improvements to the screen, and like I already said, it's now one of my favourite touchscreens to use. This proves that GoPro doesn't need to do any more hardware changes with their touchscreen, and this may bother some people. After all, most devices these days are offering edge-to-edge screens, so why shouldn't GoPro do the same thing? Well, quite frankly, it would actually break more easily, and how many people do you know have a cracked smartphone screen and that's not even been used as an action cam? They may get rid of some of the black borders around the rear screen to actually fill the image up a bit more, but for advertisement purposes they'll still want a little black border that actually has GoPro written on it in case people are showing their camera to the screen. Having GoPro written there is always good for them. There is one rumour that GoPro might actually have a detachable rear screen, and that would also act as a wireless remote, and honestly I think that's a bit of an expensive option on one hand. On the other hand, if the rear screen was detachable, it could be put somewhere safe when your GoPro is exposed to a rough or rugged environment or even the water. GoPro could also profit from selling replacement screens for those that are lost or damaged, and if the screen is damaged, only the screen needs to be replaced and not the entire camera. However, the downside is that this would require some type of hardware connection, and this would affect how watertight the GoPro would be, so I don't think GoPro will have any major screen updates due to the costs involved and the additional hardware it would actually require. So after all of that, what are we most likely to see with the new model? Well, no doubt we'll see a lot of new software bells and whistles finally included to make up for the lack of new hardware. And this is what will be heavily touted by GoPro as a reason to buy the camera, even though they're only minor improvements. And here's the list as I see it. Upgraded front and rear screen info. The front screen on the GoPro is something I thought was a complete waste of time when I actually first heard about it and saw it. I just did not think I would use it at all or that it was necessary. I was wrong. I was dead wrong. It is one of my favorite things about the Hero 9. It is just so handy for framing shots. However, this time around we might see more functionality like displaying the audio peak meters like we see on the GoPro Hero 9 once you've equipped it with the media mod. I suspect the rear screen may also do the same thing with or without the media mod. However, to push sales, this may be a media mod exclusive, I don't know. Either way, a better way to display information would be welcome. It may even be selectable like the way you can select the shortcuts on the rear screen. Being able to select what information you want to actually show on the screen would be a huge benefit. Hypersmooth 4.0. It's pretty much a given, and although you probably couldn't tell the difference between Hypersmooth 2.0 and 3.0, one thing is for sure, there's a lot of room for improvement with Hypersmooth, and since it's software based, I think that's an easy one to bet on. This time around there will be improvements made to low light Hypersmooth, although low light footage will still look bad due to the sensor size compared to the megapixel count. And we may even see a horizontal or vertical lock option for those who don't like that auto pan effect when you're racing in a car and the camera pans before you turn. I can imagine that would be a huge draw for people to purchase the GoPro Hero 10. An extended battery. GoPro know that people have been crying out for longer battery life, and they somewhat addressed this with the GoPro Hero 9 USB pass-through door. It was a fantastic idea, it was well made, and it shows that GoPro are thinking about users' power needs. However, with people using different power supplies, not removing the internal battery, there's lots of overheating complaints as a result, and I think GoPro will want a handle on that and able to offer an extended use with more control over how it's done. So I envision GoPro possibly building an add-on that combines a larger battery, 2 to 3 hours, with a weather-tight connection to the camera door. We have a display mod, a media mod, a light mod. It's probably time for a battery mod. Removable drain cover. Currently the Hero 9 has a drain cover located on the side of the camera, and it's one of the very first things that people break off thinking it's some kind of door. Who knows how many cameras GoPro have actually had to replace due to that broken drain door. So a great way to cut costs would be actually to make that drain cover just pop off and being able to replace it. This also could be a source of revenue for GoPro, selling a replacement $5 drain cover when it costs about 10 cents to make. An upgraded media mod. By removing the ability to add an external microphone and removing the HDMI out from the camera, people had to rely on the media mod to get these features for the camera. I can't imagine the GoPro Hero 10 being any different. After all, if they introduce a battery mod, this would require a redesign of the battery area, so therefore we could expect a redesign of the media mod. So what else could we expect from the media mod this time around? Possibly an extra gold shoe adapter. That would actually be quite helpful. I doubt there will be any hot shoe adapters. I haven't seen any sign that the app is looking to control any aspect of the camera, although this could be something that the Hero 11 or 12 could look at. And instead of just one microphone in the upper corner saying stereo, I can actually envision that they actually have two microphones in the corners, two front, two rear, and this would be a huge benefit since people are actually buying separate microphones that are actually front and rear. If the GoPro Media Mod offered this, so a person could be talking to someone in front of the camera and still be heard from talking behind the camera, this is obviously a no-brainer from GoPro, and I can't imagine it would be that much difficult to actually introduce. The GoPro Hero 8 did offer front and rear microphone support on their media mod, but for me that added a high-pitched whine and kind of shoved the audio over to one side. It just didn't work well. They didn't fix this problem with the Hero 9. In fact, they took out the stereo mode, so I can imagine it's something they'll want to bring back for the Hero 10. An upgraded display mod. Maybe, not likely, but maybe. When the display mod was eventually released, it wasn't that great. Don't get me wrong, the picture was fantastic, and the fact that it was actually powered by its own internal battery and didn't suck the camera battery, also a great choice. But the fact is, it just wasn't a touchscreen, and it killed the rear display in the process, while not being actually much bigger than the rear screen anyway. It means it just wasn't a huge success. With the introduction of the front screen on the GoPro Hero 9, it wasn't a necessity either. If GoPro do redesign the display mod, it would have to be two things. Bigger, like much bigger, and a touchscreen. Otherwise the GoPro kind of might just leave the display mod to slowly die in a corner. An upgraded light mod. The current light mod is very powerful, very small, light. However, it's just not as good as a larger flat panel light and can be a bit harsh even with a diffuser added. GoPro may want to upgrade that into a slightly larger unit and push the sales of it and the Hero 10. It may be wirelessly controlled or controlled from the Hero 10 itself, but only if you have a new media mod. App control will be a huge advantage, especially if you want to do things like timers, adjust the flash rate, things like that. It could be a huge potential earner for GoPro if they introduce a new light mod. One thing we can definitely be assured of seeing is more third-party accessories. Recently GoPro introduced Open GoPro, and that was fantastic. Now, if you're not familiar with Open GoPro, this allows anyone, and I mean anyone, to write software that can be used to interact with and control certain aspects of the camera. You can do this on your own if you wanted to, or if you think you can do something cool, GoPro actually want to hear from you and want to discuss partnerships. So you can bet GoPro have already been in contact with people regarding this and will have plans for third-party accessories to be available come the release of the GoPro Hero 10 between the release date and Christmas. They'll really want to push this as a great way to actually get more people involved with creating products for the Hero 10, and we can expect to see controls from anything from your car to actually smartwatches, all having the ability to control your camera. Renameable presets. We might be limited as to how many presets there are, but it's something that people have been crying out since the GoPro Hero 7 came out. People want to be able to rename and create their own preset names, and I think that will finally come along with the new model. And finally, what about the price? Well, I think GoPro's current model of having a fairly expensive camera for sale, but with a steep discount if you sign up for a GoPro Plus subscription, is something they're going to stick with. Unless there's some major hardware changes with the camera, which I'm not expecting, I think a release price of $450 for early adopters, leveling out to about $350 by May or June of next year, that's pretty likely. However, for the price of $450 to be acceptable, GoPro will really have to push for the new software features and the availability of third-party hardware compatibility via Open GoPro. So those are my predictions for the GoPro Hero 10. It'll be interesting to see how many of them actually come true and what the accuracy was. And I'd actually like to hear what you think is going to happen with the GoPro Hero 10. Not just your wish list, but what you actually think is going to be viable. Like I said, the GoPro Hero 10, I think GoPro will need to push it as a huge thing, a big release, but I'm not sure they're in the financial position to actually start adding huge amounts of different hardware or to radically adjust the actual architecture of the camera itself. So those are my predictions. Those are what I think are going to be realistic. So hey, leave your predictions in the comments and I'll read through them, and I'll do a follow-up video based on what your thoughts were and which ones I thought were the best. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it proved worthwhile, and if you liked the video, click that like button and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.